Trevor Forrest was the cinematographer on some major episodes of Little Fires Everywhere, including the premiere and the finale. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby, here to ask Trevor, first of all, with this being a series that is driven by relationships and how they change over time, what was your approach to just framing actors the right way, especially between the mothers and the daughters?
Yeah, I have to go back to the beginning really in terms of the way when I have a script that lands on my desk, you have to kind of ask yourself, what is the way into this script? And it's remade by Liz and beautifully crafted by Celeste. But both pieces of writing were tightly wound thrillers, really, the way it read to me. And the other sort of relationship was the relationship of weather to this apple pie, beautiful world of Baker Heights, and their relationship and how these two characters collided. So when you approach a project like that and you have the tool of weather, you have the tool of their tension moving forward, a lot of what drives the camera and the framing of the camera and the framing of the action that you see in each scene comes from escalation that goes from 0 to 10 through the series and through the episodes. And so that was also something that tracked that way. But when we get to an intimate situation with mother and daughter, you're right, and off angle or short siding and all these tools that we started to use in the beginning, felt that we used them a lot by maybe episode 4, and we had to then take them another level to, and so moving masters and missing a beat and then coming back and finding a beat and having the energy of putting you as a viewer in the room became as important as how we would finally find the frame in the end. I started as a photographer before I was a cinematographer, and so I understand the use of framing and the way you can tell a story just by leaving something out. And it was something that's been taught by many of my mentors, and actually going to the Camera Image Festival, it's something they talk about a lot, about what you leave out. It's very Polish cinematography kind of beginning foundation where your job really is to extract the stuff that's not necessary to tell the story, and so the tighter lenses, and as the series progressed, we got tighter and tighter and tighter, and that also led to tighten up and to ratchet up the thriller and kind of pressure points and pressure boiling the boiling point of the finale as well.
Yeah. So how did you come to be involved with Little Fires Everywhere?
Initially, I was interviewed, and they'd interviewed a lot of different DPs. I had heard from Pilar Savone and Kerry's team that there was still an option to interview for it, and which really excited me because my wife had actually spent the last few months reading the book, and so I did have an insight to that, and again I was excited by that sort of tracking of a thriller that went with the weather, which is such a rare kind of storytelling trait of any project, really, because so much of television has to be made so quickly and can't track those sort of things. So anyway, Pilar Savone rang and told me about the project, told me about some of the difficulties it had in terms of setting up the project because it shifted from one location to another. They were trying to find answers to how we could make Shaker Heights successfully in Los Angeles, how we could track those seasons while still shooting Los Angeles, and regular conversations of how I would treat both light and dark skin, and luckily I'd done projects that included both of those approaches in terms of beauty photography and emotional photography, which is always beauty photography, and how you can slightly twist away from that to create an art for the character and for the actress. as well as still maintaining a cinematographic approach that feels beautiful. So anyway, with that conversation in hand, I set about making a keynote, like a 60-page keynote, which is not something I would normally do. I like to do it for myself, but it's not always something I walk into a meeting for, because I obviously want to hear what the director has to say. But in an interview, especially in television, I went into an interview with, I think, seven or eight women, and they were the line producer, the two exec producers, the director, the production designer, who else was there? I can't remember exactly who was there, all of that, all of the names of the people who were there, but it's a lot of people that I was now going to have to explain my thoughts to, so it helps me to have that as a thoughts process. But some of the questions they asked during the interview, I actually stumbled across and answered them already through the photographs, my own photographs from my house in Shelter Island on the East Coast, because the Midwest, which is neither Midwest or neither North or is basically not Midwest. It's very confusing for an English to go, oh, it's the Midwest. I'm looking for it in Midwest, and it's not there. But basically, it's that beautiful, like, northern eastern light, which I was lucky enough to experience while having my house there in Shelter Island. So I had a lot of pictures from there that I drew from. And through every season, and what happens at that part of the world, the seasons do change almost every 2 months. So you have a real sense of shift and a real sense of change while you're in it. It's not like summer and then there's 4 months and suddenly there's winter, and your brain is disconnected the two things. You have a real sort of connective tissue through that. So now I live in LA, and I had at least an archive of my own photography to figure out what the difference was. And so there's a couple of people I reached out to. Stefan Sonnefeld, who I'd met on I'm the Night with Patty Jenkins, and Dan Zazaki, who I'd met through Panavision, who I'd had a relationship with since I was a backloader. So, long time family of camera people and technicians and resources that I'd had then. And between the two of them, we figured out how to create a lens that would enable me to shift the light that you can see here from LA into something that was easier doing the apple pie, beautiful summer of It's Almost the Hamptons. And actually, Lynn Shelton brought a book by a photographer that primarily took pictures in the Hamptons in summer in privileged people's houses. And then I then resorted to my pictures of like pouring rain, darkening afternoons, early evenings, practical light that comes on around 4 o'clock in November. And then if you're there in January, it's probably 4 or 5 hours of proper daylight. The rest is grey or snow, or it has some difference and flatness and blanket that stops the light getting to anywhere. So that's what I could look into and go, well, okay, well, Shaker Heights is here and we're here in LA, and I think this could become the bridging point. So I presented that in my meeting, and that helped help them understand, or put one problem to one side that they didn't have an answer to at the time, which was great. And then the making of lenses also gives you an opportunity to start talking about beauty photography, which obviously, if you have people like Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington, these elements are important to their brand and their career and how they're seen and shown and how their fans know them. So the shifting of the lenses also had an interesting sort of stumble across it. Really, it wasn't something we'd done before, because often making a beauty lens just means softening. But when Dan started taking the lenses out of the Panavision lenses and putting them back together again to facilitate the other problem we had, what happened was the sharpness and the contrast we could keep, but actually there was something in the highlights, which was something that we were playing with the daylight in LA, but we just somehow made that glow in a way that didn't affect the sharpness and wasn't like a diffusion stream suddenly. And so even on the day, on the DOT, really simply, if there was any beauty approach or anything we wanted to clean up or enhance, we could literally just lift the highlights, a very particular part of the curve on the CDL as a note for the DI later on. And that would almost become the beauty approach and the beauty cleanup. And And it was actually more subtle. And I think because we were doing it like anything else, if you can do anything on set in response to what you see through the lens, then that's going to be a lot better than anything you can do later on in a beautiful, white, pristine room with the visual effects, flame, suite, and the human just needs to clean up and clean up and clean up. And you're going to have a cup of coffee, come back and go, oh, there's another edge there. And I think when you get to that little bit there of like, oh, another edge there, somehow it starts to become something the brain can identify, and it's sort of like you start to see it, which leads to another conversation about visual effects touch-ups, which are normally amazing by, a true artist is amazing at this, but the lenses really helped. And that was also something we talked about in the interview. So the interview was going pretty well by this point, and then we started talking to Lynn about her interests, and by that time we were really into the full conversations and enjoying each other's company. And a few days later, I got the job, and we started fleshing out these conversations.
Wow. That was a very detailed answer. Thank you. And with the Richardson House being so expansive with those big open rooms, and then the Warren apartment being smaller, more cramped, was there anything creatively that you did differently in those two locations to sort of reflect the differences in their lifestyles?
Yeah, I mean, that started with, I guess, with Celeste telling the story of this huge house, the Richardson House, and then Jessica Kender, our production designer, going to work with her amazing team and creating the Richardson House on set. Now, they built that enormous set. It led to a few problems because it was such a big set that the stage couldn't hold parts of it, so we were quite close to the walls at some point. And then the Winslow House, the family house that Kerry Washington lived in, was actually a location. Where that was also part of the set as well. So we were tied to the reality of that a little bit with light and time of day and and the physicality of a location in terms of the entranceway. And with a smaller building, you can get away with less on set because you still have to be able to step back and know that there's 5 feet to the first window, 7 feet to the next window, 7 feet to that window, and then it's the end of the house, done. Where the Richardson House, you probably had to turn your head to see from side to side, even on the set. I think the corridor, I can't remember the exact measurement, but the corridor was probably about 60 or 70 feet long. The lounge room, which we had to invent reasons to go into because it was built this enormous room with amazing detail, a piano, a fireplace, chandeliers. It wasn't actually in script for us to go and shoot scenes in there, but we soon found reasons to go in there pretty much, and to sort of get us out of that big entranceway, the staircase, and into what it was a linking room between the staircase and front door into the office and then into the TV room where a lot of the kids spent a lot of time in. But to approach that massive set, you just had to use big open skylight pieces and ceiling pieces with light mats that Danny just put together, and we cobbled together like modular systems mostly for that. And I don't really like to have lights in set because I like to have fluidity with the camera and give the actors freedom to move around wherever they feel like on rehearsal and so on. And then light in the outside, and that also, leads into working on locations which actual daylight, and coming from that side of that's my beginnings in indie films and that sort of stuff, and really wanting to leave the natural daylight coming through, because I also knew that there was going to be an arc to that natural daylight going forward. So that also leaned into the approach to how I was going to approach to create the reality of the set, which is technically just a box in a stage, but beautifully textured and created and detailed by Jess. We had a line of 20 Ks outside the front of the Richardson House, where the Winslow House, we actually used color forces, which are much more soft LED sources, which are long, and we made these little chicken wagon kind of coverings to them so we could change our diffusion, but came through a texture of wire as well, which then broke up the light in a really interesting way. And I also knew that we would feel the change of light at the Winslow House more because it was an older house. It didn't really have heating. It didn't have massive fires in every room. It had one fire. And I really wanted that house to be a bit like a medieval house, or, back in the 19th century house at least, where you would live with the daylight. And so lights would come on, a candle would be lit, the flame from the fire would illuminate the apartment, the whole apartment, through the living room and the kitchen, down the corridor, where the Richardson House always had a chandelier, or always had like sconce lights on the walls and up the staircase, or a massive 6-foot fire lighting through the 6-foot living room, that sort of thing as well. So it was really lovely to have the ability to work through these massive windows in the Richardson House to tell the story of space and people being lost in their own life, almost in their own living situation. And then the Winslow House being much more like a cave and attached to nature, and that just lent in to Kerry's story as well, of someone who had travelled across the country several times with her daughter, and just much more connected to nature. And I think that also spoke really beautifully to the layers of motherhood and the way that she approached motherhood, rather than the process and the support structures that Elena had in her story. So the light and the story really went hand in hand through a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up a little bit here, this final episode has a very key scene, of course, where the Richardson House is set on fire. So what was the process of just planning out what is very much a major climactic moment in this story?
Sure. Well, it's all out now, so everyone's seen the episode, and so It's not going to spoil or take away anyone's experience of it. But
yeah,
that singular scene, or several scenes, because it was the starting of the fire inside the set. But suffice to say, absolutely everybody got involved in this, from production to Jess to our special effects people, our VFX people, my lighting team, my grip team, me. But it all started with me and Lynn scratching our heads in episode 1, because it was going to appear partly then as well. And storyboarding and going to the location and thinking, okay, well, this is the house, and this is kind of how the fire would start, and then we kind of paused there because we knew that there were going to be some other decisions made, and we might want to play with some of the dynamic of who starts the fire first and what starts the fire first, and how there's a negotiation between the kids and where that is going to happen and what location in the house and stage. So we paused at episode 1, and then got to the prepping of episode 8, and again went back to this house we now knew well. And I took a few stills from the lawn and from the viewpoint of where Reese was going to stand. We decided that she was going to stand safely from the fire, but enough to be in the frame of this enormous operatic fire. And from that picture, we started scribbling some just on my iPad. You can do a markup of a picture on an iPad. So we thought, okay, flames start there, they progress to here, and they would come down the corridor, and then, another fire would start here, and that would come towards the staircase. And if it got to the staircase, the big open area, so actually maybe the air from that would then create much more of a blaze, and then it would collapse. And then it would progress through and take out the rest of the house. And by that time, some of the bushes and the plantings on the outside would be on fire as well. And all of this would happen during an icy January in Midwest America evening. And I went back that evening to my office and just sort of fleshed out that sketch a bit more. Our VFX team were about to get stuck into this and bring more concept drawings to it. But doing that drawing, I kind of thought, actually, what about the next morning? And obviously, there's a description of the next morning of it being a wreck. But what does that look like? And I thought, going back to the Shelter Island pictures, it was really nice to have that sense of black and white. Everything is black and white and maybe blue-black. And so black and charcoal of the house may have been a stretch that everything would be like that, but actually it's great, again, created this operatic tragedy, leaving this conversation that they had of who did it at the back of the ambulance to happen in front of it. And so that was all done on an iPad, and then obviously our VFX team picked up the ball, fleshed out those concept drawings by amazing artists, and we were off with our plan. And then it really was about a jigsaw puzzle about what we could do on stage, what we had to do on a burn stage off-site, not on our location a lot, separating that work out, what could be safely done with flame bars, because I love the effect of light source of actual flame and a flame bar if you can. So we managed to do 6-foot flame bars inside the set at a lot of stages, and with a bit of permission from fire chiefs and other people, insurance and so on. And so you do get that sense of the fire flickering on their skin, and then thinking about what they've just done for a few beats before they go back and get their mother and drag her through the flames in the corridor. And some of those were real. There were some flames in the doorways, and some of them were VFX because they were too close to the actor to be safe, which I think were done beautifully. But all of the elements that we needed were shot after the scene, which is also great because then you can see exactly how something would wrap around somebody or lick up a wall or progress through something. And then we really wanted to burn down these teenage kids' bedrooms, because that was Amy Tolkington, Liz's like ultimate expression of teenagehood, like screw the world, we're going to burn this house down. And so that was such a, again, beautiful moments of flames looking over beds, over into comforters and up onto the posters they've kept for years and like destroy all their life. Luckily, I'd done a Jack Daniel's fire commercial previously, a month or two before I started the project. So we had actually filmed and created real huge flames that create the charcoal of the distillery for Jack Daniel's. And so when you make charcoal, you have flames that are made with a roof above them. And so the flames go up and the heat pushes back down. And what that does, it keeps the sort of the pressure point building and building and building, and the tendrils of flames start to like take on shapes. And you definitely look at Renaissance pictures and look at the flames of hell and know that that's where they got the idea from. So those were the sort of notes we gave to visual effects, that then, you know, pasted these elements onto the house that we'd shot already. They paid attention to how the flames made their way around the guttering and out of the window and up the gable of the roof. They made a third size model of the house on the stage and then lent it forward slightly, so you have that slight exaggeration of the flames growing up. And then, you know, the Alexa was amazing for exposure. You can really, you know, underexpose it 2 or 3 stops, especially at the burn stage when exposing full people's faces or the building itself. And so you could really dig in and get these beautiful sculptural orange leaf-like shaped flames by lowering your exposure and using slightly tighter lenses to get exactly what you wanted out of that, and then paste it all together. And there we are. That's what we have today.
Yeah, it's an incredible sequence to watch, I can tell you. So, well, I mean, thank you so much, Trevor, for talking to us today. You gave us a lot of great details there. We really appreciate it. And for those watching, please hit like and subscribe for more interviews just like this, and go to goldderby.com to make your predictions. Thanks again.
And also on Instagram, I'm doing a breakdown of all of this in stills that I've collected for the film as well.
Oh, there you go.
If it's useful to go and have a look at T Forrest DOP on Instagram, over the next week, I'll start unraveling all of this as well with some notes if you want to go and see it.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much again.